Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Fluctus Channel. Tasked with protecting shipping and controlling the influx of goods and contraband into the USA, the U.S. Coast Guard is a highly trained force with vessels and weapons that reflect its role against heavily armed criminal elements. It falls somewhere between the Navy and Harbor Police, with the added responsibility of saving people and vessels stricken at sea, sometimes in hurricanes. On August 4, 1790, the United States Coast Guard, one of the country's 5 military forces, was founded as the Revenue Cutter Service. It was initially responsible for enforcing tariff rules that were critical to the country's early economic stability. Over time, the Coast Guard has expanded to fulfill various essential duties, including marine safety, security, and environmental protection. This branch is unique because it functions under the Department of Homeland Security during peacetime, but can be transferred to the Navy during wartime. The Coast Guard's various missions include coastal defense, search and rescue, ice breaking, and maritime environmental protection, as reflected in its motto, Semper Paratus. A good example of what the U.S. Coast Guard is capable of doing is from 2014. When the USCGC Healy, a Coast Guard icebreaker, rescued a sailor and his 36-foot sailboat after it got stuck in ice in the Northwest Passage off the coast of Barrow, Alaska. These types of rescue incidents are what the Coast Guard is there for, a force for good while preventing crime on the U.S. coastline. In 1 year, the U.S. Coast Guard responded to 19,790 search and rescue cases, saving 3,560 lives and almost $77 million in property. Among the vessels in the U.S. Coast Guard, the Coast Guard cutter Healy is the biggest and most technologically sophisticated icebreaker in the country. Since her 1999 commission, she has called Seattle, Washington, home port. Healy made history on September 5th of 2015 when she arrived at the North Pole unsupported by any other U.S. surface vessel. On board the Healy, she has 4,200 feet of scientific workspace and is equipped with a multitude of sensors and diving equipment. This vessel is large enough to carry 2 HH-65B Dolphin helicopters. If required, she can accommodate 19 officers, 12 chief petty officers, 54 enlisted personnel, and 51 scientists. Another example of the U.S. Coast Guard in action occurred about 40 miles west of Egmont Key on May 28, 2023, when a rescue crew from Station Cortez rescued 4 individuals from a sinking ship. The distress signal from the ship notified the Coast Guard watchstanders. In this case, the Coast Guard utilized one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats, a vessel that can operate in heavy seas and is capsize-proof. That means the MLB can roll 360 degrees and will always end up upright. The vessel is also constructed from high-quality aluminum and has a fly-by-wire steering system. When the vessels employed by the Coast Guard can't reach the people who need to be saved, then the various helicopters can do the job easily. It all depends on flying conditions and how much fuel they have. Helicopter crews are known to often fly out under difficult conditions to save people. Dolphin helicopters are equipped with rescue hoists, often with rescue baskets attached. On occasions such as these, where a fishing boat is stranded in ice, the rescue swimmer or aviation survival technician comes into their own. These are the men and women who enter the water to save the lives of individuals in trouble.
Swimmer on his way down. Forward and right, 20. Swimmer on his way down. And just start watching that Shannon, John. Roger.
These highly trained and selected personnel often enter freezing water conditions to help individuals too weak to get into the rescue basket or use the hoist harness.
A little low. Swimmer and survivor are at the rail.
In another incident where a helicopter was used, on Thursday, July 13, 2017, a Coast Guard Air Station Cape Cod MH-60 Jayhawk helicopter crew were asked to medevac a 56-year-old female passenger. She was experiencing abdominal pain on a cruise ship off the Massachusetts coast. While hovering, the AST was lowered to the deck, where he made sure everything was in place for the medevac. After the patient had been strapped to the stretcher, the rescue swimmer used a rope to stabilize the stretcher as it was raised. If this is not done, the stretcher can start spinning uncontrollably. Once the patient was on board, the AST was hoisted up. After touching down at Air Station Cape Cod, the patient was transported to Cape Cod Hospital by emergency medical services. Coast Guard members need to be trained in difficult and often dangerous conditions. They receive training at the Advanced Helicopter Training School off the beaches of northern Oregon and southern Washington. During autumn and spring, the storms in the Pacific Ocean create conditions along this coastline, which is perfect for training Coast Guard personnel under realistic conditions. Waves are high and unpredictable, and usually accompanied by high winds. During these training schools, Coast Guard members train how to perform various types of rescues, including cliffside, cave, and often even real rescues, as calls for the Coast Guard rarely cease coming through. Coast Guard Aviation Training Center mobile personnel conduct the course, which is hosted by Coast Guard Sector Columbia River. By the time they are done, these men and women have learned a lot.
This training is valuable for myself as well for the Coast Guard is because I get to take back what I've learned and present it to the members that I work with, as well as possibly use what I've learned in any scenario. Yes, I admit, Air Station New Orleans, there isn't cliffs, but there are buildings. Hurricane Katrina happened, and this was a huge factor, probably some of the success that happened.
Other types of training conducted by the Coast Guard are also critical in allowing them to do their jobs well. The United States Coast Guard performs all types of intensive training. This is done to prepare its members for a wide range of challenging scenarios on and near the ocean. Wet drills, hoist training, and cold water immersion are critical components of this training, which is intended to increase survival skills and operational efficacy in maritime conditions. Wet drills are a set of exercises that replicate emergency situations in the water. Coast Guard members are trained to right overturned life rafts, swim with heavy gear, and undertake rescues under demanding conditions. These activities are vital for increasing stamina and confidence during aquatic operations. Hoist training is another important consideration, particularly for helicopter rescue operations. Members practice lowering and raising from both water and land conditions, utilizing a basket or harness. Cold water immersion training prepares Coast Guard members to survive in freezing conditions. Exposure to cold water can cause hypothermia and other life-threatening disorders. During these drills, trainees learn how to reduce heat loss, identify indications of cold water shock, and use survival methods to protect themselves and victims until rescue or recovery is feasible. One of the resources at the disposal of the U.S. Coast Guard is the HC-130 Hercules cargo aircraft. These aircraft are usually used for long-distance search and rescue, or when airdrops must be performed in support of a rescue mission. They are based on the C-130 Hercules, which has been flying since the 1950s. One of the advantages of the HC-130 is that it can fly long distances with a loiter time of many hours and cover a search grid locating any ship in distress or an aircraft that may have ditched. Once the stricken vessel or survivors have been located, the aircraft can perform an airdrop or mark the location for surface vessels. Airdrops are, however, their most used function. Airdrops usually occur when the aircraft crew must deliver much-needed supplies to survivors in the water. The process, however, is a drill that has been repeatedly rehearsed. As the HC-130 approaches the drop zone, it will descend to about 500 feet. From there, the drop master will deploy marker flares, usually Mark 58s, which can last for up to an hour. These are laid out in a racecourse pattern to indicate the drop zone. Then, when the drop must occur, the pilot will give a 30-second warning, then 15 seconds and the signal to drop. The drop master pushes the cargo out of the cargo ramp of the aircraft. This cargo can include anything from aircraft parts to water and rations to radio containers, so the survivors are able to make radio communication with the crew. Once the cargo has been dropped, the drop master reports to the pilot and then retracts the D-bag, which is the part that deploys the cargo parachute. When it comes to saving lives along the coastline of the United States, there is only one organization to call: the U.S. Coast Guard. These dedicated men and women not only prevent contraband from entering the country, but also ensure that any water emergency is attended to with speed, efficiency, and well-trained personnel. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of our new content. See you next time.